Good evening and welcome everyone to another episode of On the Sofa. I'm Monja in our Edinburgh store tonight, and joining me is Kalyn to chat all things Hogmanay.
Hi, I'm Kalyn, joining you all the way from New York City. So Christmas is fast approaching, which means that New Year's celebrations are as well. I'd never heard the word Hogmanay until a few years ago when I started volunteering with the New York Caledonian Club and began doing social media marketing related to Scottish culture. So I have no idea if there are any big differences between Hogmanay and how we celebrate New Year's Eve here in the US, but I do know that in Edinburgh you have a really big party, which I'll ask about later. So for now, let's start with the basics. What does the word Hogmanay mean?
So although this is a basic question, there's not a real answer. It's not actually known where the word comes from, although most people would believe it comes from the French word Hogmanay. Again, I'm so sorry if anyone speaks French, any French, I speak none, please correct me on that one. And that means gala day, which does make sense as a big festive day.
Right.
So that's where most people think the word comes from. And it's thought to first been used widely following Mary Queen of Scots' return to Scotland from France in 1561, which would make sense, her bringing some French words over with her. But Dr. Donna Heddle, who's an expert from the University of the Highlands and Islands, explained that the name could also come from the Anglo-Saxon Halig Moneth, meaning holy month, which again, that would make sense, although modern day we celebrate one day rather than the whole month. Other people suggest it could come from the Scandinavian Hogonot, meaning Yule. But Dr. Heddle does agree the most likely source seems to be the French. In Normandy, presents are given at Hogmanay, and they were called Hogwignets, which again, it's very similar to Hogmanay, so that is a very likely source of the word. As of my very roundabout way of answering your question, Kalyn.
So with all that in mind, what is then possibly the history behind Hogmanay? As we know it.
As we know it, yes. So from the end of the 17th century to the 1950s, Christmas wasn't really celebrated as a festival in Scotland because it was regarded as a Catholic celebration. So, of course, it was banned by the Protestant Kirk for that reason. So, sadly, we went many years without a proper Christmas celebration. I know, it's shocking. So, as a result, in Scotland, most people did work over Christmas and then instead took their time off at New Year to gather and party with friends and family and sharing gifts. Like we mentioned before, were known as Hogmanays. So I think that's why it's such a big deal in Scotland, is we didn't really have Christmas for so long.
That was the big party.
Exactly.
That was the big holiday party time.
Yeah, they saved it all up for New Year instead of over the Christmas period. And now we just have the best of both worlds. We do it all. So
so history suggests that in the 8th and 9th centuries, the Vikings, with their celebrations of the winter solstice and shortest day, were the beginning of many of the traditions still followed today. Indeed, the famous fireworks and torchlight procession in Edinburgh are reminiscent of Hogmanay pagan celebrations where bonfires were lit. Blazing tar barrels were rolled down hills and lit torches were tossed. That sounds...
all very wild.
All very wild.
bit of danger there.
So in the northeast of Scotland, fire ceremonies still take place, and Stonehaven is apparently the most spectacular if you want to experience the warding off of evil spirits. So I guess that might have something to do with, I don't know if that is the warding off of evil spirits. Maybe that's something that they decided to do at the New Year. Sort of, how we might think of like making a New Year's resolution.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want the evil spirits following you into another year. So just leave them at the door and
leave them at the door and light them up.
Exactly. I see the logic there. It all makes sense. So torches were originally made by wrapping animal hide around sticks. And if you actually go up to the Isle of Lewis today, the young men there do still make up groups carrying torches. And they visit houses in the village. And it is a little bit like Halloween, where they recite Gaelic rhymes and receive bannocks, which they put in their sack. And Kalyn, bannocks are delicious fruit buns, which I know you're coming over this year to Scotland, so you absolutely have to try them while you're here. Next year.
Next year. But it's okay. So that's actually interesting, though, because I've made what I've thought were bannocks, like as these kind of oat cakey kind of things that I've like made on the stove. I guess maybe that's different.
It's maybe like come from the same place, and then just as it's spread across the world, it's maybe changed recipe slightly. So that would make sense. No, it is very interesting where all these. I mean, that you've got something very similar in the US. So.
Well, I don't know. They're not really from the US. I think they're maybe the US interpretation of Scottish.
Yeah,
but
that would make sense. Yeah, just as it's passed down through the years, then it's altered slightly.
Right. That's cool. I'll have to go to the Isle of Lewis and try some original ones.
Definitely.
So, Monja, what are some older traditions associated with Hogmanay?
So there's obviously loads of partying, as we discussed earlier, lots of dancing and celebrating, but there are actually a few traditions that we're supposed to follow to bring in the new year. The first, slightly less fun than all the partying, is that we're meant to clean the entire house and take out the ashes from the fire, and all of that is meant to be done before the 31st of December. As well, that all debts should be cleared before the bells sound at midnight. And it's just the idea that you start the new year afresh. You're not taking any dirt or ashes or anything. You're going in with a new house, not a new house, but a new clean house at least. It does make sense.
Where are these bells that sound?
I guess there's not even so much I don't even know why we say that. It's a good question. I think like at midnight, modern day, we have loads of fireworks. I guess churches would ring bells and things to signify that
probably
the new year has come in.
Yeah.
So it's just sort of referred to as like seeing the bells in. It's just, if you stay awake long enough, you'll see the bells or hear the bells.
It'd be interesting to hear if like some smaller villages or just, if places still actually do ring bells. Yeah,
if they do ring the bells. I mean, it would make sense. It's,
it's a pretty late job for someone to do, but
but at least then the whole village would know that it's a new year.
How else are they, supposed to know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like we have phones.
Yeah, exactly. There's no other way to tell. We need the bells.
There's no other way to tell. We need the bells. So we all begin New Year with resolutions and the chance to do better. But I like the simplicity of simply tidying up and sorting the bank balance. No need for a diet or fitness plan this year then.
No, not if you're going the Scottish route. Just clean your house and you're done. Yeah. Nice and simple.
Yeah.
So there's another sort of older, really great tradition in Scotland called first footing, but it doesn't really happen so much nowadays as it used to. So first footing is when you visit friends or family immediately after midnight in order to become the first person to visit them and go into their house on the new year. So you're the first foot. So that's, if you're the first person in, you're the first foot for that family. And traditionally, which I am very on board with this, the first foot should be a tall, dark-haired man. So not against that idea. So it said that should dates back to the Viking invasion, because Vikings sort of typically were fairer haired. So the arrival of a blonde man could mean imminent danger. So if your first person through the door was the opposite of that, it's meant to be a bit of a better luck. You're not going to get invaded by Vikings. So again, maybe not so relevant these days, but that is the tradition. So. There's another theory of why the person should be dark-haired, is that there are roots in pagan traditions of marking the arrival of the dark half of the year, which I guess sort of winter, it's darker, gets darker earlier, and interacting with the mysterious realm of darkness and spirits and appeasing them with food and hospitality. So if you are welcoming them into your home with food and drink and warmth, then it's meant to be a better omen, I guess, which again kind of makes sense. So depending which history you prefer, but both match up, I would say, for the first footing. So a black bun, which is a dark rye bread, is traditionally given as first footing gift to ensure that the people leaving the house you're visiting don't go hungry in the year ahead. So first fitters also traditionally bring a lump of coal to ensure the house remains warm in the coming months, which, you know, all the Santa stories of getting coal if you've been bad, this is the opposite. You get coal to bring you warmth and good things for the year ahead. So
yeah, definitely a different spin.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly. It's maybe not such a bad thing to get a lump of coal. Maybe not in your stocking, but as a Hogmanay gift. But nowadays, it would be unheard of for people to bring shortbread or whiskey instead of the more traditional sort of buns and coal. Yeah. I think I would rather have the shortbread and whiskey, to be honest with you. But
me too. But I'm giving everyone cool. Yeah, like I'm excited about but I'm not going to give any context. I'm just going to say, here's your cool. Trust me, it's good. Just believe it's a good thing.
First fit. Here's some cool. I'll see you later.
Yeah, maybe in addition to the whiskey and the shortbread. That way you have a little tradition there.
Exactly, softening the blow a little bit.
Yeah, it's really cool though, actually, when you hear about all of these different traditions and you think of how maybe how things, as we were saying before, how things get passed down or get passed over from one country to another, and you tend to have many of the same items or similar ideas, but then the contexts are different or the meanings have slightly changed. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's nice to hear how it's adapted and changed slightly. So yeah, it's
right. And how especially us here in the US, we might do a lot of things that are perhaps traditionally Scottish without knowing it. For instance, here in the US, we are used to singing Auld Lang Syne at New Year. I've always known it, but of course, this is also of Scottish origin, which I think most people might not know. So can you tell me more about that very famous New Year's song?
Absolutely. I think I've seen that in American films and things. Everyone sings it, which I always thought was, I don't know, I thought it was quite nice that it was a Scottish song, but I guess like you say, not everyone might know that because it's just become something that everyone does every year.
Well, and what's really interesting about it though too is that you don't even know what it means. You don't even know what you're
you just sing the words.
Yeah, but seriously, no one knows what that is.
That is fair enough. So the song is actually part of a much longer work by Scottish poet Robert Burns, the most famous, most people will have heard of him. Although even he did admit that it was based on an old folk song. So there is a lot of debate when people say it's a Robert Burns one. A lot of people say it wasn't actually originally. So he did base it on a much older song. And Auld Lang Syne means old long since or old times, to answer your question. And so the phrase literally means, for Auld Lang Syne, literally means for old time's sake, which again is a really nice thing to sort of sing at New Year. It's an appropriate song because it reflects on old times, which a lot of people do at New Year. You think back to the year past, and then it sort of begins to look ahead to new times to come, which is why it's sung at New Year at the bells.
Yeah, that's really interesting as well, because everything that you've talked about so far is very much like getting rid of everything from the past and going in new, but then you kind of, just before you sing this song that you can look back on the good things, or even the challenges, or whatever of the past year. And I think that's really nice, and that makes a lot of sense. Well, I did have a look into when it first became known here. And, of course, it's always been popular in Scotland, so it makes sense that Scottish immigrants brought the song across the pond when they emigrated to the US, mostly in the 19th century. Yeah. It became more of an international favorite back in 1929 when Canadian band leader Guy Lombardo and his band performed at New York's Roosevelt Hotel on New Year's Eve. Amazing. So Lombardo explained the story to Life magazine in 1965. This is quoting him. "Auld Lang Syne is our theme song and was long before anyone ever heard us on the radio. In our particular part of Western Ontario, so Canada, where there's a large Scottish population, it was traditional for bands to end every dance with Auld Lang Syne. We didn't think it was known here. And when we left Canada, we had no idea we'd ever play it again." So that's him. The performance was being broadcast on radio across the US, and listeners took it to their hearts, with Lombardo's New Year concerts and the playing of Auld Lang Syne quickly becoming a US tradition as well. So that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Bringing it over and, everyone hearing it and kind of maybe not knowing exactly, like I said, exactly what's being said, exactly what the history of it is, but there's something about it that's still kind of,
it just sounds,
you get the essence of it anyway.
Yeah.
Even if
you can get the feeling and sort of pick up roughly.
So in his 1977 obituary, Time magazine noted, quote, "First on radio, then TV, Lombardo's rendition of Auld Lang Syne marked the nation's rite of passage from the old year to the new." So it's even said if the song weren't played on New Year's Eve, a deep uneasiness would run through a large segment of the American populace. A conviction that, despite evidence on every calendar, the new year had not really arrived. So that's, it seems like that's
very important.
You have to have Auld Lang Syne, or we're not getting to the new year. We're just not.
Yeah. It's not arrived if it's not been sung.
It's not. It's not.
We used to actually sing it at the end of our dance sort of festivals at school. We would do Scottish country dancing at school, and when we went to big festivals and we all went as a school, it was all sort of the local schools all joined together, and we would all do it then, join in a massive big circle and sing Auld Lang Syne. So
we do that at burn suppers here as well, with the big circle and everything. Yeah.
So it makes sense for New Year, but it also has like some other, just the message is nice for getting a group of friends or something together, and definitely. So I should also mention, of course, there are two Auld Lang Syne tartans. So there's Auld Lang Syne Modern and Grey. So it's not too clear how they came about, but I think they were designed in the early 2000s, just basically to celebrate the song, and of course Robbie Burns. We always need to celebrate Robbie. He is the sort of treasure of the nation.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have a clan tartan yourself, or if you want to go for something new, then they are really great options for a new Hogmanay outfit. They're very wearable as well.
Yeah. Well, speaking of new outfits, what should you wear for Hogmanay?
So I would say basically it depends on how you're celebrating. So if you are going to hit the Edinburgh street party or an outdoor party to watch some fireworks, because there's fireworks all over, then you definitely need to wrap up warm. Sort of end of December in Edinburgh is freezing. So definitely layer up a nice cashmere jumper, tartan coat, get your sort of Scottish feels on while you sing Auld Lang Syne, and then definitely hat, scarf and gloves, super cozy. But if you're doing something like a ceilidh or more of an indoor party, which tends to be what I go for, then you might want to go for a kilt or tartan skirt, especially if it's a ceilidh. You want a lot of movement and a lot of swing while you're twirling. It gives a lot more drama. So definitely something with lots of pleats. And a sash or a bow tie can be a really nice way to add a bit of tartan. If you're going for a more simple dress or something. And again, for a ceilidh, it's really nice. Most people tend to wear a bit of tartan to a ceilidh. I guess it's just a Scottish thing, so you've got to pop some tartan on. So
right. I mean, if it's, if you're not wearing tartan and making it as Scottish as possible, then is it even a ceilidh?
Well,
or is it just a party,
Basically, a party with twirling. There are fine lines and rules to make it a ceilidh.
Yeah. So I will hopefully be in Edinburgh next year for Hogmanay. And I'm really looking forward to experiencing this party. I think it's like a once in a lifetime, at least for me, maybe not once in a lifetime, but it feels like, I don't know how many times in my life I will be in Edinburgh on New Year's Eve. So from what I've heard, it's much bigger than what we have in Times Square here in New York City, which I always thought was the biggest celebration because that's what I grew up seeing.
Yeah.
But apparently Edinburgh is just so much bigger and so much crazier. So what do I need to know about celebrating Hogmanay in Edinburgh? Because it might take me a whole year to prepare.
I think it probably will. I mean, it basically takes over the whole city. So there's a lot. So there's a lot going on. And there is something for everyone. So it's great no matter what you want to do, what you like. So if you're a really hardcore music lover, then the street party has DJ sets and really popular bands every year. So you can see some big names as well. And of course, it's a street party, so you get a really good atmosphere as well. It's a different kind of concert, I guess. Instead of sitting in your seat and everything, so everyone's out on the street partying. And the annual Hogmanay celebration was originally an informal street party focused on the Tron Kirk in the High Street of the Old Town in Edinburgh. But since 1993, it's been officially organised with the focus moved to Princes Street, which is, I think it's just a bit wider, a bit easier, rather than the Old Town with the cobbles and everything. Princes Street is a bit flatter as well, which is
maybe a little less dangerous for
a little less, considering
just for walking.
And in 1996, over 300,000 people attended, leading to the ticketing of the Main Street Party in later years for a limit of 100,000, because that is a lot of people. It's a big street, but that's a lot of people to cram in. So it is now ticketed with a third of that number. So, but of course, if you don't want to go to all out with the official street party, the castle is set so high up above many other parts of the city that there are so many places to watch the fireworks from, because they go out over the castle. So you're not limited to having to be on Princes Street to see the fireworks. And there's loads of informal celebrations that you would find across the town. So just like across from the shop, there's the Gilly Do. They usually have a big ceilidh every year. So things like that, there's always stuff going on at New Year's. The whole city is alive with Hogmanay.
So what if you have, for people that want to come and have kids with them, I don't know how, good maybe the street party is for that. So what are some things that people with kids could plan to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best thing for kids, I would probably say, is to join the torchlight procession on the 30th, where, like, sort of a similar tradition like we mentioned earlier, a little less dangerous. You can please
just fire, it's just
lots of fire going around, don't worry.
Less dangerous.
Very safe for children. But you can blaze through the city accompanied by fire rather than wielding it around, and light installations as well as you move through to the heart of Edinburgh's Old Town, which is all lit up. It's absolutely beautiful. So this year the procession will be spread out between 4 and 9 p.m. And again, you will need a ticket and you have to show your COVID vaccine passport, just to make sure everyone's nice and safe. When picking up your torches at Bristol Square, Waverley Bridge or Parliament Square. So there's a few different places that you can sort of go and get torches from.
And this happens on the 30th.
That's the 30th, rather than the 31st, which it does give you a chance to do a bit of the torch procession, then maybe the street party if you've not got kids or something else.
I guess sort of also to kind of break up I'm guessing if you're having even, just a mere 100,000 people as opposed to 300,000, there's probably, I can imagine it might be hard on that same day to have any kind of procession around Edinburgh. So it makes sense that it would be the day before.
Absolutely. But the fireworks and the torchlight procession in Edinburgh, they do have a historical background because they are reminiscent of Hogmanay pagan celebrations, which is when the bonfires are lit, the blazing tar barrels are rolled down the hills, like we said earlier. So you can sort of like match it all in. It all pulls together.
It's very cool. So I've heard something about a Loony Dook. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but I've heard something about that, and I want to know, what on earth is that? Because to me, it just sounds loony.
I mean, it is. It really is. It's great fun, but it is. So if you are not quite satisfied with a crazy fireworks display, an insane street party, and a torchlit procession, there is an annual tradition, like you said, known as the Loony Dook. So this gets basically, you dress yourself up in the craziest outfit you can find, wacky, crazy, colourful, whatever you want to go for, and you march through the streets of South Queensferry, and then you throw yourself into the Firth of Forth, which is the river connecting the North Sea. And bearing in mind, this is now the 1st of January, it is absolutely freezing. So the name Loony is very appropriate. But there are so many people who do it every year, and it looks just amazing. It's the costumes that people have, it's brilliant, but very, very, very cold.
So what is this the next day? Like this is January 1st, right?
Yeah, so it's to get you up in the morning, knock away any hangovers.
That's what I was going to say. Honestly, it just sounds like people, with raging hangovers that need, a wake up.
Exactly. It just blows away the cobwebs.
Yeah.
It really does that.
So what's a Dook? Like why is it called the Loony Dook? What is Dook?
Dooking is like putting your head under the water. So like Halloween, we do like dooking for apples, which is where you get a basin of water and put apples in, and then you've got to stick your head in and catch the apples without using your hand.
See, so we say the word, we say dunking.
Yeah, I guess it's just the Scottish.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, Scottish dunking. Yeah. So
I'll call it the crazy dunk. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
The crazy dunk. It's essentially what it is.
I love that. So, I'm fully expecting you this year to do the Loony Dook, Monja.
Well, I feel like I have to now.
I feel like you have to.
Yeah,
you built it up so well. Yeah. So other than that, how do you celebrate Hogmanay yourself?
So I don't have any sort of set traditions. I tend to do something a little bit different every year. I will usually see it, sort of spend it with friends, seeing the bells in at midnight, and we do sing Loch Lomond at midnight, and of course Auld Lang Syne. We've got to do a bit of both. I think I do prefer Loch Lomond because it's just I guess that is my little tradition that we do that at midnight, and usually with a wee dram of whiskey as well, just to be as Scottish as we possibly can be.
That sounds lovely.
It really does. Yeah, it's a nice little thing. I think one of my favourite years was spent in the Grass Market of Edinburgh, which is at the bottom of the castle, so the other side to Princes Street, and I was with a few friends, so we went and joined some people watching the fireworks display over the castle, and then after the fireworks at midnight we had a little impromptu ceilidh, and it was just wonderful. We met loads of new people, we were singing terribly at the top of our lungs, and just twirling at the bottom of the castle. It was wonderful. So I think that's...
What is an impromptu ceilidh? Like, do you do ceilidh dancing and have, like a fiddler, like doing their thing?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a lot less glamorous than that. I think someone got some fairy tunes on their phone and played that. And then we all did a bit of the gay Gordons and stripped the willow and everything. And it was just lovely, sort of wishing all these strangers a happy new year, because it was just me and a couple of friends, so we were just a really small group, and we got sort of swept up into all this twirling and dancing, which was really lovely.
Sounds very Scottish.
I think I didn't realize I was so stereotypically Scottish, but there you go.
I couldn't hope to hear anything better.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I think it would be really disappointing if I was like, I just stay home every year, watch the telly, see the fireworks above the castle on the telly, and then I just go to bed.
And you know what? And forget Auld Lang Syne. But as we've heard during this, we can't just leave out Auld Lang Syne, or it is not, in fact, the new year. It's just not. It's not real.
Not. You've got to have Auld Lang Syne.
Even if you go to bed, you have to set an alarm for midnight so that you can wake up, and you just have to sing it.
Just sing it to yourself, back to bed again. That's the official rule.
Yeah.
So New York City, like you said, Kalyn, is again, it's a really famous New Year celebration with the ball drop in Times Square. So have you ever actually been? I'm not sure if locals go to the ball drop, or if it's more a tourist thing, or do you have a totally different tradition each year?
So it's kind of a running joke with New Yorkers that most of us haven't done these super iconic events or seen, very stereotypical New York things like the Statue of Liberty. I've seen the Statue of Liberty. But it is a joke. So the Times Square ball drop is one of those things that it's kind of like the majority of New Yorkers have not actually seen this. So no, I've never done it because it sounds absolutely insane.
Yeah.
After hearing though about this street party, maybe it's not that insane. But so I've heard that the key is really to get invited to a party or get a hotel for the night that is in direct view of the Times Square ball drop, and that is really the best way to see it, as opposed to going down there. Because I think what happens is that you have to get there really early in the morning, and I think you kind of just can't leave. You lose your spot then. It's like being in a big concert. If you move, you lose your spot. So it sounds just nuts, but of course a lot of people come to New York City to see it. It's definitely always been a tradition of mine to watch it on TV. I've done that since I was born. All the TV, the news, they show it the whole evening. There's a lot of musical performances and things that make it really fun. It sounds kind of similar to certain aspects of the street party in Edinburgh. There's lots of, there's several different musical artists. Maybe there's some, just special guests like actors or other celebrities and stuff that say something. So it's, it's definitely a fun thing to watch. I've also found that if you're anywhere in New York City, including the other boroughs like Brooklyn, I used to live in Brooklyn for years and I had the same problem. But if you're anywhere in New York City, the best thing is to either stay put where you are for the whole night, or make sure that you're somewhere that you can just walk home from, because getting an Uber on New Year's, or even trying to get on some of the trains, is the absolute worst. I know all of this is a lot less, glamorous than maybe you were expecting, in terms of New York City, New Year's Eve, but it's really just trying to go really far away to any parties, or trying to go to the Times Square. I think to me, it sounds like it takes them the whole night to really clear everyone out of there. So I think wherever I am, even in New York City, I always watch it on TV. I always watch it. And do similar things to what you're saying. You know, we all have a drink. I think most of the time we have champagne, or when I was little, you know, we got like the grape juice and stuff like that, and we all have that. And I think calling all of our family members and stuff, say Happy New Year, you know, that's really what we do, which it sounds like most of us around the world have very similar traditions with that. You got to have a drink, you got to be with your family, and you got to
call everyone. Yeah, definitely. Well, it's good to get sort of an insider's point of view of New York at New Year's, because I think I would be that person that's just utterly stranded, not able to get anywhere.
You'll wait a really long time to get a car, or like, you know, the surcharging is crazy. So it's best to just find a nice, if you want to go out, find a house party that you can crash at, or go to a nice pub down the street. But, you know, don't travel too far. Yeah.
That is perfect sense. So earlier this week, I also actually asked some of our other team members how they celebrate, to get some more stories and ideas for you, Kalyn, because everyone has their own slightly different traditions. So it is really nice to see how different people do it. So
they better all end with Auld Lang Syne.
Exactly. We'll need to tell them they're doing it wrong otherwise. So we'll cut over to a few of the team now, and they can tell you their versions of Hogmanay.
I have had some very varied New Years, and I have to say I've been in a few different countries, but Edinburgh's Hogmanay is absolutely my favourite, which is why I had to wear my Edinburgh jacket today. So before the street party was a real thing, which really shows my age, doesn't it? We used to just all cram into the Royal Mile in Edinburgh, and I just loved all the random people that you spoke to, who you'd meet. You'd have impromptu ceilidh dancing in the street, then the best bit was always the countdown to the bells and everybody's shouting, and I just love all that atmosphere, and just being outside for all of that. You could never manage to squeeze into a pub. So none of that hugely traditional, but definitely that countdown to the bells is a big highlight, and I know, talking to others on the team, they're probably the same. I also one year did go to a formal ceilidh, and we were all dressed up in black tie, and that is one of my highlights as well, definitely one of my favourites. Everyone goes a bit wild, dancing Strip the Willow during the evening. And then my favourite part, absolutely favourite, and I think this is of most Scottish events, because often you do it at weddings as well, is when everyone joins hands and sings Auld Lang Syne at the end. It's just that atmosphere and the warmth and the positive feelings. It just feels like the whole world is your oyster. And that whole joining hands in friendship line makes you just feel so good inside, and I think that's a great way to feel to kick off the new year, and probably quite a Scottish thing, that kind of optimistic looking forward. So if you're not familiar with the tradition of joining hands, at the start of the song, the start of Auld Lang Syne, everyone stands in a circle and you all hold hands, just normally with the people either side, and then just at the beginning of the final verse, where it says, "And there's a hand, my trusty friend," you cross your arms and hold hands with the people either side of you, and normally there's loads of people jammed in and you're kind of just managing to touch fingers, but it's really nice, and you're singing loudly and bouncing your arms up and down. It's amazing. And then I'm getting excited for Hogmanay already. And then one thing you have to watch out for is at the end that everybody then runs into the middle and runs back out again. You do that a few times, and it can get quite wild, but again, that's probably the best bit. So yes, raise a dram. I love everything about New Year, but I love the people, I love the party. That's why I love the most. And people and parties, what Scotland's about, is it not?
So how do I celebrate Hogmanay or New Year's? So I always do this following the Spanish tradition, which, by the way, I always thought it was a worldwide tradition. So when I first moved to Scotland and I realized it was only a Spanish thing, I was quite shocked. So in Spain we have what we call las 12 uvas de la suerte, which translates to the 12 grapes of luck. And what we do is on the final countdown before the end of the year, we have 12 tolls, so 12 bells, and with each of the bells with a grape, and we do this for luck. So it's quite, it's a tradition, but it's also a superstition at the same time, because if you don't manage to eat the grapes, that means that your following year is gonna be quite a bad one, so you're gonna have like bad luck for the following year. So it's quite a funny one, I suppose. To me, it's something I've always done. But it's funny because in Spain, that's like those 12 seconds are the most quiet seconds that you can imagine, because you know that in Spain we are quite loud. During those 12 seconds, everyone's so focused on getting it right. It's actually quite a fun thing to watch. So yeah, I would recommend doing it. And as a tip, always go for seedless grapes and try to go for small ones, because otherwise you can choke.
With being from quite a large family, my festive season, and particularly Hogmanay and New Year celebrations and traditions, really just centre around family and coming together. So we would quite often have a big party on New Year's Eve where we would all gather in one household and enjoy a few drinks and food, party games, and just generally catching up about the festive season and Christmas and yeah, what's really ahead for everybody. And then quite often we would head down to the local rugby club on New Year's Day, as they would host a big family day with live music. And with being from a really small community, everyone tends to really make a big effort for these occasions because they're sort of few and far between. So it's just really nice to all be together. I've enjoyed a few New Year's up in Edinburgh, which I would definitely recommend to anyone. Highlight of that particularly being the firework display that happens above Edinburgh Castle, and we viewed it from the grass market one year, and it was really quite incredible just being so close and in amongst that really great fun Scottish atmosphere.
So there we have it. We hope you've enjoyed learning about Hogmanay with us. If you have fond memories of a family tradition or suggestions on what I should get up to next year when I come to Scotland to celebrate myself, get in touch and leave us some comments below.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for tuning in tonight and throughout the year. And we just want to say a really heartfelt thank you for all the amazing posts, photos, stories, everything that you continue to share with us as we celebrate your heritage and history. It's really special that you involve us in sort of all of your special stories. So our passion is fueled by you, and we thank you so much for making this a really exciting business, because, you know, we love to hear how far and wide Scottish history has spread.
We can't wait to see you all again in 2022, where we'll kick off the year by celebrating Clan Lindsay as our Clan of the Month. And then, of course, at the end of January, we'll be returning to Raby for Burns Night. And just after that, we'll be opening the doors to our first American store in Albany, New York.
So exciting. Yes. So a lot coming up to stay tuned for. So stay safe, everyone. Have a happy Hogmanay, and we'll see you next year for another year of tartan fun.